All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer on Earth's absolute greatest natural masterpiece. Today, we're exploring a world that is quite literally bursting with color, mystery, and a sense of scale that's almost hard to wrap your head around: Australia's Great Barrier Reef. We're going to unpack what makes this underwater wonder so incredibly vital, how it actually came to be, and the very real existential threats it's facing today.
So think about this massive number for a second. 344,400. That is the square kilometer footprint of the Great Barrier Reef. It's an ecosystem so unfathomably huge, you can actually see it from space. I mean, imagine a living structure stretching across the ocean that just dwarfs everything around it. It's truly mind-boggling when you stop and think about the sheer physical space it takes up.
To put that kind of scale into perspective, this system sits right off the coast of Queensland, Australia, stretching a staggering 2,300 kilometers. That's roughly 1,430 miles, from the top of Cape York all the way down to Bundaberg. And we aren't just talking about one giant rock here. This is a highly complex network, containing nearly 3,000 individual reefs and around 900 distinct islands. It's actually larger than a lot of entire countries. It's no wonder this place was officially recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site back in 1981, drawing in millions of people every single year who just want to witness it firsthand.
Section 1, built by tiny architects. We know this structure is enormous, but what's really fascinating is how it was actually created. It turns out the modern reef is surprisingly young. It really kicked off only about 8,000 years ago when the last ice age ended. As the global ice melted, sea levels started rising over these submerged rocks along the Australian coast. And that's when things got interesting. Tiny coral animals, called polyps, began to attach themselves to these rocks. Then, each of these polyps built up a tiny limestone skeleton. Generation after generation, billions upon billions of these little guys just built right on top of the skeletons of their ancestors, slowly constructing the massive structure we see today.
So the absolute key takeaway here is this. The Great Barrier Reef is the world's largest living structure, built entirely by living organisms. It isn't just some static geographical feature like a canyon or a mountain. The foundation itself is literally alive, built over millennia by microscopic architects.
Section 2. An underwater metropolis. Let's dive a little deeper and check out the astonishing ecosystem that relies on this living limestone.
Just take a look at the sheer volume of biodiversity calling the reef home. You've got over 1,500 species of fish, around 400 different types of coral, and well over 130 species of sharks and rays. And get this, 6 of the world's 7 species of sea turtles are found right here. Throw in the whales, the dolphins, and thousands of mollusks, crabs, and starfish, and you've basically got a bustling, vibrant city beneath the sea.
And this is definitely not just a static list of animals. Every single inch of this metropolis is alive with purpose. You've got bright clownfish darting through sea anemones, these massive manta rays just gliding through the crystal clear water, and reef sharks on patrol. You even have highly specialized roles, like there are tiny shrimp running what are essentially underwater car washes for the larger fish. It's wild. Everything is perfectly balanced, with each species playing a crucial role in maintaining this incredibly complex harmony.
But here is a truly mind-blowing contrast. See that tiny 1% sliver? Across the entire globe, coral reefs cover barely 1% of the ocean floor. The other 99%? That's open ocean, deep-sea trenches, sandy plains. Yet, that microscopic 1% sliver supports roughly 25% of all marine life on Earth. A quarter of our ocean's entire biodiversity is packed into that tiny fraction of space. So why does this 1% matter so much globally? Well, without it, marine ecosystems everywhere would basically collapse. But it's not just about ocean life. These reefs literally act as shields, protecting our coastlines from massive storms and crushing waves. They provide food, jobs, and vital tourism money for millions of people. And incredibly, they serve as a massive research hub for developing new medical treatments. If we lose the reef, we are losing economies, our physical safety, and potential future medicines.
Section 3. The bleaching crisis. Because, unfortunately, this incredible underwater metropolis is currently facing one of the greatest existential threats in its history. The source material is very clear here. The greatest threat facing the reef today is climate change. Rising ocean temperatures trigger something called coral bleaching. This is a biological stress response, where the water gets too warm, the corals get super stressed out, and they basically expel the colorful algae living inside them. Since they rely on that algae for both their brilliant colors and much of their food, the corals are just left starving and bone white. During a mass bleaching event, the transformation is absolutely stark. You can see it right here. Healthy coral is colorful, thriving, and packed with nutrients. But bleached coral, it's stark white, highly stressed, and extremely vulnerable to death. If those high temperatures stick around for too long, the corals just can't survive, and massive sections of the reef die off. In fact, we've already seen several mass bleaching events severely damage large parts of the Great Barrier Reef.
And compounding this whole warming crisis is a barrage of other threats. Climate change isn't acting in a vacuum. The decline is being seriously accelerated by water pollution and plastic waste just choking the waters. You've got coastal development and overfishing disrupting that perfectly balanced food web we talked about. Add in destructive tropical cyclones and literally a predator known as the crown-of-thorns starfish that actively roams around eating the remaining living coral. It is an enormous amount of pressure being put on this natural treasure.
But it isn't all bad news. Section 4, Saving the Reef. There is a lot of hope and a ton of global action happening right now.
It is super inspiring to see the sheer scale of the conservation efforts currently underway. You've got this huge alliance of governments, scientists, and volunteers fighting back. They're monitoring coral health constantly, using satellites and underwater drones. They're establishing massive marine parks to strictly prevent overfishing. There are even conservation teams out in the water physically pulling those destructive crown-of-thorns starfish off the reefs. And perhaps most exciting of all, researchers are actively growing heat-resistant corals in labs, hoping they can seed the reef with polyps that can actually survive warmer oceans.
Which brings us to one final, very real question to leave you with. Will future generations actually get to experience this wonder? The Great Barrier Reef is so much more than a pretty tourist spot. It's a living masterpiece built over thousands of years by billions of tiny animals. Its survival basically hinges entirely on the choices humanity makes today to protect our oceans and address a changing climate. Will we step up to protect one of Earth's greatest treasures before it's too late?